The courtroom smelled like old wood and stale coffee. I sat straight in my chair, still wearing my scrubs from the night shift. The fabric was wrinkled, and there was a small coffee stain near my collar that I hadn't had time to change out of. My mother sat 3 rows behind me with her attorney, and I could feel her eyes burning into the back of my head. The bailiff called the case. Estate dispute. My grandmother had passed 6 months ago, leaving behind her home in Asheville and a modest savings account. My mother wanted it all. She'd filed a motion claiming I had abandoned the family, that I was unfit to receive any inheritance, that I had contributed nothing to my grandmother's care in her final years. I hadn't seen my mother in 4 years, not since the Christmas she told me I was wasting my life. The judge entered, and we all stood. Judge Morrison was in her late 50s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun and reading glasses perched on her nose. She settled into her chair and reviewed the papers in front of her. "This is a contested estate matter," she began, looking between my mother and me. "Mrs. Patricia Holloway is petitioning the court to reallocate the inheritance designated to her daughter, Elena Martinez, on grounds of abandonment and neglect of familial duties." My mother's attorney stood. He was younger than I expected, probably fresh out of law school, wearing a suit that looked like it cost more than my monthly rent. "Your Honor, my client has prepared a detailed statement documenting her daughter's absence during critical family moments, including her own mother's final illness." "I'll hear it," Judge Morrison said. My mother stood. She looked exactly as I remembered, perfectly styled blonde hair, designer suit, pearls at her neck. She'd always cared deeply about appearances, about what other people thought, about maintaining the image of a successful family. "Your Honor," she began, and her voice had that practiced tone she used at charity luncheons. "My daughter left us 8 years ago. She chose a path that took her away from this family, from her responsibilities, from everything we built. While I was caring for my mother in her final months, Elena was nowhere to be found. She didn't call. She didn't visit. She sent a card to the funeral, a card, and that was it. I kept my face neutral. I'd learned that in the ER. How to stay calm when everything inside you wanted to scream. My mother asked for her in those final weeks," my mother continued, and I heard her voice crack. That part might have been real. "She kept asking when Elena would visit. I had to keep making excuses. It broke my heart to watch my mother's disappointment." Judge Morrison made a note. "And what is the basis for claiming your daughter abandoned familial responsibilities?" "She's just a nurse, Your Honor." My mother said it like she was apologizing for me. "She works at some hospital, odd hours, barely makes ends meet. She couldn't even take time off to see her own grandmother. She prioritized her job, her little nursing job, over her family." The courtroom was quiet. I could hear someone shifting in their seat behind me. "When she left for college," my mother went on, "we had plans. She was going to law school. She had the grades, the LSAT scores, everything. But she threw it all away for this, for scrubs and bedpans. She embarrassed this family by choosing such a basic profession when she could have been so much more." I watched Judge Morrison's eyebrows rise slightly. "My mother left her estate to be divided equally between us," my mother said. "But I don't believe Elena deserves it. She made her choices. She chose to leave, to pursue something beneath her capabilities, to abandon her family. She should live with those consequences." My mother sat down. Her attorney looked pleased with himself. Judge Morrison turned to me. "Miss Martinez, you're representing yourself?" "Yes, Your Honor." My voice was steady. 4 years of trauma surgery had taught me how to function on no sleep and high stress. "Would you like to respond to these allegations?" I stood up. My scrubs suddenly felt very loud in this room full of suits. "Your Honor, I'd like to clarify something first. I'm not a nurse." My mother made a small sound behind me. "I'm a trauma surgeon," I continued. "I'm the head of emergency surgical services at Carolina Medical Center." The judge's expression didn't change, but I saw her eyes sharpen with interest. "Is that so?" "Yes, Your Honor. I completed my medical degree at Duke, then my surgical residency, then a fellowship in trauma and critical care. I've been in my current position for 2 years. Your Honor," my mother's attorney started to stand. "I'm not finished," I said, and my voice had that edge I used in the ER when someone was about to do something stupid. My mother is correct that I haven't been present for family gatherings. She's correct that I work odd hours. Last night, I worked a 16-hour shift. The night before that, 14 hours. I average 80 hours a week in the hospital. I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I have documentation here, if the court would like to see it. Letters from my hospital administration, commendations, patient outcomes data. Judge Morrison gestured for the bailiff, who brought the folder to her. She opened it and began reading. I also have bank statements showing regular deposits to my grandmother's care account. I continued. I paid for her in-home nursing care for the last 3 years of her life. I paid for her medications, her medical equipment, her physical therapy. The total comes to approximately $240,000. The courtroom was completely silent now. I couldn't visit often, I said, and I felt my throat tighten. I wanted to, but I'm on call every third night. I perform emergency surgeries. I treat trauma victims, car accidents, gunshot wounds, heart attacks, people who will die if I'm not there. My grandmother understood that. This is ridiculous, my mother started. Mrs. Holloway, you'll have a chance to respond, Judge Morrison said sharply. She was still reading through my folder. I took a breath. My grandmother and I talked every Sunday morning, every single Sunday for 8 years, unless I was in surgery. We video called. I showed her pictures of my work, of the hospital. I told her about my patients, the ones I could talk about. She was proud of me. She never mentioned any of this, my mother said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Maybe because you never asked, I said, and I turned to look at her. When was the last time you asked me about my work, Mom? When was the last time you asked me anything other than when I was going to quit and do something respectable? Your Honor. This is inappropriate, the attorney began. Judge Morrison held up her hand. She was reading a letter, and I knew which one it was. I'd included 3 letters from my hospital's chief of surgery. The top one was dated from last month. Miss Martinez, the judge said, looking up at me. It says here that you were instrumental in developing a new protocol for treating mass casualty events. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor. After the shooting at Morrison Park 2 years ago, we realized our emergency systems needed improvement. I led a team that redesigned our trauma response protocols. We've since trained 40 other hospitals in our region. And you received an award from the governor for this work? Yes, Your Honor. My mother was very quiet now. Judge Morrison set down the letter and picked up another one. This is from a patient, Daniel Chen. He writes that you saved his life after a construction accident, operated for 11 hours straight. She looked at me over her glasses. Is this typical? Long surgeries? Sometimes. Mr. Chen's case was complicated. He'd fallen 3 stories and had multiple organ damage. But yes, that's the job. And you've performed approximately 600 major surgeries in the past 2 years? 637, Your Honor, plus minor procedures. The judge set down the papers and leaned back in her chair. She looked at my mother. Mrs. Holloway, you stated your daughter is just a nurse who barely makes ends meet. Were you aware that trauma surgeons typically earn between $400,000 and $600,000 annually? My mother's face went pale. That can't be right. Were you aware that your daughter holds an endowed chair at the medical school, that she teaches surgery to residents? She never told me. Did you ask? The silence stretched out. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Judge Morrison looked at the attorney. Counsel, do you have any evidence to support the abandonment claim, given what we've just heard? The attorney shuffled through his papers. He looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Your Honor, my client was under the impression. Your client was wrong, Judge Morrison said flatly. She turned back to my mother. Mrs. Holloway, your daughter has been supporting her grandmother financially for years. She maintains regular contact. She has a demanding profession that serves the community in crucial ways. She saves lives for a living. And you want to punish her for that? I didn't know she was a doctor, my mother said quietly. She never said, because you never asked, I said. At Thanksgiving 8 years ago, you asked what I was doing with my life. I said I was in medical school. You told me I was wasting time, that I should have gone into law like you wanted, that I was disappointing the family. You said I was settling for something basic, something anyone could do. So I stopped trying to tell you. You could have, I sent you my graduation announcement, I said. From medical school. You didn't come. I sent you an invitation to my white coat ceremony. You didn't respond. I called to tell you about my first solo surgery. You cut the call short because you were at a benefit dinner. My mother was crying now, mascara starting to run. I thought you were angry with me. I thought you'd chosen your career over family. I chose a career where I could help people, I said. Where I could make a difference. Where I could use my skills to save lives. Grandma understood that. She told me she was proud of me every Sunday. Judge Morrison closed the folder. I've heard enough. Mrs. Holloway, your petition is denied. The estate will be distributed according to the original will. Furthermore, I'm ordering that all court costs and attorney fees for this proceeding be paid by you. You brought a frivolous claim based on assumptions rather than facts. Your Honor. I'm not finished, the judge said, and her voice was ice. Miss Martinez, I want to thank you for your service to this community. As someone whose grandson was treated at Carolina Medical after a car accident last year, I'm aware of the caliber of work your department does. The fact that your own mother doesn't recognize your accomplishments is a failure of communication and understanding. But it's not grounds for disinheritance. She looked at my mother. Mrs. Holloway, I suggest you take some time to actually learn about your daughter's life. From what I see here, you have a daughter who is accomplished, compassionate, and dedicated. Many parents would be grateful for that. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, the afternoon sun was bright. I stood on the steps and closed my eyes, feeling the warmth on my face. My phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Multiple vehicle accident on I-40, incoming traumas, all hands on deck. I started walking toward my car. Behind me, I heard footsteps. Elena, wait. I stopped, turned around. My mother stood there, still perfect in her designer suit, but her makeup was ruined from crying. I didn't know, she said. I should have asked. I should have, her voice broke. Why did you assume the worst? I asked. Why did you just decide I was throwing my life away without ever checking? Because I wanted you to have the life I didn't get, she said. I wanted you to have prestige, respect, security. I thought law was the path to that. I thought medicine was just, I don't know what I thought. I was wrong. I looked at her. She looked smaller somehow, less certain than I'd ever seen her. Grandma knew, I said. Every Sunday, she knew exactly what I was doing. She asked about my patients. She asked about my surgeries. She wanted to hear all of it. She never told me. Did you ever ask her about me? Or did you just complain about how I'd left the family? My mother flinched. I didn't know how to talk about you. Everyone at the club asked about you, and I didn't know what to say. I thought you were just working in a hospital somewhere, I thought. She wiped her eyes. I thought you'd chosen to leave us behind. I called you, I said. For the first 2 years, I called every week. You were always busy, always at an event, or a meeting, or a luncheon. Eventually, I stopped calling. I'm sorry. She said it so quietly I almost didn't hear it. My phone buzzed again. Multiple traumas, ETA, 10 minutes. I have to go, I said. There's been an accident. They need me at the hospital. Now? Right now? That's the job, Mom. That's what I do. I'm the one they call when someone's dying and needs surgery immediately. I'm the one who decides who lives and who doesn't make it. That's what you call basic. That's what you call beneath me. I walked toward my car. Behind me, I heard her voice. Can I call you? Sometime? Can we talk? I stopped with my hand on the car door. Turned back. Sunday mornings. That's when I have time. That's when I called Grandma. Sunday mornings, she repeated. I'll call you. If you do, I said, ask me about my work. Ask me about my life. Don't tell me what you think I should be doing. Just ask. She nodded, crying again. I got in my car and drove toward the hospital, toward the emergency room, toward the trauma bays where 3 accident victims were being rushed in by ambulance. My phone showed their vitals being transmitted from the ambulances. One was critical. Massive internal bleeding. I called ahead to the OR to prep. By the time I pulled into the hospital parking garage, I'd already talked to 2 residents and the anesthesiologist. I jogged across the parking lot in my wrinkled scrubs, stethoscope bouncing against my chest. The ER doors slid open. I could hear the chaos inside, voices yelling, monitors beeping, the controlled urgency that meant life and death decisions were being made every second. "Dr. Martinez," one of my residents ran up. 28-year-old male, ejected from vehicle, massive abdominal trauma, BP dropping. "Get him to OR3, I said, already moving. "Call for blood, type, and cross, and get me 4 units on standby. I'll scrub in." I ran. This was what my mother couldn't understand. This was what she thought was basic, beneath me, a waste of potential. This man on the gurney, bleeding out, with maybe 20 minutes before his organs shut down. He had a life, people who loved him, dreams, plans, a future. And whether he got to keep those things depended on what I did in the next few hours. I scrubbed my hands at the sink, watching the water run. My eyes were burning from exhaustion. I'd been up for 22 hours straight. I had coffee stains on my scrubs and hadn't eaten since yesterday. My back ached. My feet hurt. My hands were raw from constant washing. And I wouldn't trade this for anything. In the OR, they'd already opened him up. The damage was extensive. I could see it: immediately ruptured spleen, liver laceration, possible bowel perforation. It was going to be a long surgery. "Okay," I said, stepping up to the table. "Let's save this man's life." 6 hours later, I walked out of the OR. The patient was stable, in ICU, with good odds for recovery. His wife had been in the waiting room the whole time. When I told her he was going to make it, she collapsed into a chair and sobbed with relief. That was why I did this. That moment. That gratitude. That life saved. I found an empty on-call room and lay down on the narrow bed. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and 1 voicemail. I played it. "Elena, it's Mom. I wanted to say I'm proud of you. I should have said it years ago. I should have said it every day. What you do is incredible. What you do matters. And I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I'll call on Sunday. I promise. I want to hear about your work. I want to know about your life. I want to know my daughter." I saved the voicemail and closed my eyes. Somewhere down the hall, a code was called. I sat up, instantly alert. But it was for internal medicine. Not my patient. Not my emergency. I lay back down. 5 minutes of rest. That's all I needed. 5 minutes before the next trauma, the next surgery, the next life hanging in the balance. The inheritance money from Grandma's estate would go into a college fund. Or maybe to a down payment on a house I'd never have time to live in. Or maybe I'd donate it to the trauma center's equipment fund. Grandma would have liked that. She used to tell me, during our Sunday calls, that she knew I was doing important work. She said she could hear it in my voice, the exhaustion, yes, but also the purpose, the certainty that I was exactly where I was supposed to be. My mother had wanted me to have prestige. She'd wanted respect for the family name. She'd wanted security and status and all the things that looked good at country club luncheons. What I had was better. I had 28-year-old men who got to go home to their wives. I had teenagers who survived car crashes. I had grandmothers who got more years with their families. I had the weight of a scalpel in my hand and the knowledge that I could stop death, could pull people back from the edge, could give them more time. That was my inheritance. Not money or property or social standing. Purpose, skill. The ability to make a difference when it mattered most. My pager went off. Another trauma incoming. I stood up, splashed water on my face, and headed back to the ER. There was work to do. There were always lives to save. And somewhere in Asheville, my mother was learning what her daughter actually did for a living. Maybe she'd understand now. Maybe she'd see that I hadn't abandoned anything. I'd just found something worth holding on to. The ER doors opened, and I stepped back into the chaos, back to the noise and urgency and split-second decisions, back to the place where I belonged, back to work.